Beef is a staple food in many cultures and is enjoyed by millions of people around the world. However, it is also a controversial food item due to its association with various health issues, including diabetes. In this video, we will explore the relationship between beef and diabetes and examine whether or not beef consumption should be limited for those at risk of developing the disease. Anemia prevention. Anemia is a common condition, characterized by a decreased number of red blood cells and reduced ability of the blood to carry oxygen. Iron deficiency is one of the most common causes of anemia. The main symptoms are tiredness and weakness. Beef is a rich source of iron, mainly in the form of heme iron. Only found in animal-derived foods, heme iron is often very low in vegetarian, and especially vegan, diets. Your body absorbs heme iron much more efficiently than non-heme iron, the type of iron in plant-derived foods. Thus, meat not only contains a highly bioavailable form of iron but also improves the absorption of non-heme iron from plant foods, a mechanism that has not been fully explained and is referred to as the meat factor. A few studies indicate that meat can increase the absorption of non-heme iron even in meals that contain phytic acid, an inhibitor of iron absorption. Another study found that meat supplements were more effective than iron tablets at maintaining iron status in women during a period of exercise. Therefore, eating meat is one of the best ways to prevent iron deficiency anemia. The link between beef and diabetes. There is growing evidence that links beef consumption to an increased risk of developing type 2 diabetes. Several studies have found that people who consume large amounts of red meat, including beef, have a higher risk of developing diabetes than those who consume less meat. One study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that people who ate more than one serving of red meat per day had a 19% higher risk of developing type 2 diabetes than those who ate less than half a serving per day. Another study published in the journal Diabetes Care found that consuming one or more servings of red meat per day was associated with a 48% higher risk of developing diabetes. So, why might beef consumption be linked to an increased risk of diabetes? One possible explanation is that beef is high in saturated fat, which has been shown to impair insulin sensitivity and increase the risk of developing insulin resistance. Insulin resistance occurs when the body's cells become less responsive to insulin, making it harder for glucose to enter the cells and leading to high blood sugar levels. Beef is also a significant source of heme iron, which is more easily absorbed by the body than non-heme iron found in plant-based foods. High levels of heme iron have been associated with an increased risk of developing diabetes, as well as other chronic diseases such as heart disease. Another potential explanation is that beef consumption may contribute to the development of obesity, which is a major risk factor for type 2 diabetes. Beef is a high-calorie food that is often consumed in large portions, which can lead to overconsumption of calories and contribute to weight gain. Several studies have investigated the relationship between beef consumption and diabetes risk. Here are some of the key studies in this area. Red meat consumption and risk of type 2 diabetes, a prospective study in 3 cohorts of U.S. men and women. American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, 2011. This study analyzed data from 3 large cohorts of men and women in the United States to investigate the association between red meat consumption and type 2 diabetes risk. The researchers found that people who ate more than one serving of red meat per day had a 19% higher risk of developing type 2 diabetes than those who ate less than half a serving per day. Changes in red meat consumption and subsequent risk of type 2 diabetes mellitus, 3 cohorts of U.S. men and women. JAMA Internal Medicine, 2013. This study followed 3 large cohorts of men and women in the United States over a period of several years to investigate how changes in red meat consumption over time were associated with diabetes risk. The researchers found that increasing red meat consumption by more than half a serving per day over a 4-year period was associated with a 48% higher risk of developing diabetes. Red meat consumption and risk of type 2 diabetes, 3 cohorts of U.S. adults and an updated meta-analysis. American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, 2018. This study analyzed data from 3 large cohorts of U.S. adults and conducted a meta-analysis of several other studies to investigate the relationship between red meat consumption and diabetes risk. The researchers found that consuming one serving of red meat per day was associated with a 12% higher risk of developing diabetes and that this risk increased with higher levels of red meat consumption. Red and processed meat consumption and risk of incident coronary heart disease, stroke, and diabetes mellitus, a systematic review and meta-analysis. Circulation, 2010. This systematic review and meta-analysis analyzed data from several studies to investigate the association between red and processed meat consumption and the risk of coronary heart disease, stroke, and diabetes. The researchers found that consuming 1 serving of processed meat per day was associated with a 42% higher risk of developing diabetes. Heme iron intake and risk of new onset type 2 diabetes, a prospective cohort study. Diabetes Care, 2016. This study investigated the relationship between heme iron intake and the risk of developing type 2 diabetes. The researchers found that high heme iron intake was associated with an increased risk of diabetes and that this relationship was stronger in women than in men. Overall, these studies suggest that consuming large amounts of beef, particularly processed meats, may increase the risk of developing type 2 diabetes. However, more research is needed to fully understand the link between beef and diabetes risk and to determine whether limiting beef consumption can help prevent or manage diabetes. Beef and heart disease. Heart disease is the world's most common cause of premature death. It's a term for various conditions related to the heart and blood vessels, such as heart attacks, strokes, and high blood pressure. Observational studies on red meat and heart disease provide mixed results. Some studies detect an increased risk for both unprocessed and processed red meat, a few showed an increased risk for processed meat only, and others reported no significant association at all. Keep in mind that observational studies cannot prove cause and effect. They only show that meat eaters are either more or less likely to get a disease. It's possible that meat consumption is just a marker of unhealthy behavior, but negative health effects are not caused by the meat itself. For example, many health-conscious people avoid red meat because it has been claimed to be unhealthy. Additionally, people who eat meat are more likely to be overweight and less likely to exercise or eat a lot of fruits, vegetables, and fiber. Of course, most observational studies try to correct these factors, but the accuracy of the statistical adjustments may not always be perfect. Should you limit your beef consumption? Based on the available evidence, it appears that consuming large amounts of beef may increase the risk of developing type 2 diabetes. However, it is important to remember that the link between beef and diabetes is complex and not fully understood. Other factors, such as genetics, lifestyle, and overall diet, also play a significant role in diabetes risk. Beef is one of the most popular types of meat. It's exceptionally rich in high-quality protein, vitamins, and minerals. Therefore, it may improve muscle growth and maintenance, as well as exercise performance. As a rich source of iron, it may also cut your risk of anemia. High consumption of processed meat and overcooked meat has been linked to an increased risk of heart disease and cancer. On the other hand, unprocessed and mildly cooked beef is healthy in moderation, especially in the context of a healthy lifestyle and balanced diet.
If you enjoyed this video, kindly press the like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe with notifications on, so that you don't miss out on videos like this. Thank you for watching.